Let's take a little trip down a rabbit hole. We all hear about the conspiracy theories on the internet, from Flat Earth to the Anunnaki people. Many people still believe them, even though no scientific proof supports them. But what would it look like for an aspect of these conspiracies to be true? What would be the effect on history? Can you imagine what it would be like if one day 3 spaceships showed up in the sky with a lost captain, a foreign race of intelligent life forms from the beyond, similar to us but perhaps with a different body, face or skin colour? With them, they bring unknown animals, foreign customs, mysterious religions and unintelligible languages. What would be our reaction? It's not hard to imagine global chaos from a situation like that. It only took a coronavirus to show us the fragility of humanity. Sounds like a science fiction movie, because this really happened on our planet. In a different moment, a long time ago, on a continent with the most mysterious and fascinating story, America. Welcome to Intrigued Mind, and join us today as we look back at the proof ancient American civilizations were in contact with the rest of the world prior to Christopher Columbus. The first arrival of the Christopher Columbus expedition to the Americas in 1492 and the events that followed could only compare to a future visit from the otherworldly conqueror, especially from the perspective of the Native American civilizations. The Aztec Empire was the most prominent political entity in North America, located in the heart of current Mexico. The conqueror's arrival changed everything they knew about the world and matched up with the old prophecy, the return of the god Quetzalcoatl, who will come from the land of gods across the eastern sea. It is not hard to imagine how the coincidence helped the ambitions of the conquerors. In South America, the Inca Empire was in the middle of a civil war of succession between Atahualpa and Huesca. Both claimed to be true great Inca. This situation was perfect for Francisco Pizarro to topple their rule and establish a Spanish colony there. The weapons, battle tactics, and even horses terrified the natives, amounting to too much for their civilization that never developed iron weapons. The diseases that came from Europe considerably increased the mortality of the natives in the long term. Influenza and syphilis wreaked havoc on the local population, although there were no tools for accurate figures on the numbers of death they caused. Spanish chroniclers also recorded mysterious deaths attributed to melancholy or depression caused by the radical changes in their ways of lives that they experienced in such a very short time. The invasion had devastating effects on the populations. Their very way of life across the continent was changed quickly and forever. A considerable part of their culture, traditions, and history was eradicated. As a result, the mystery of their origins is still a question we contend with to this day. In these discussions, one question looms large. Were American civilizations in contact with the rest of the world before 1492? The traditional story is that the Bering Strait was a one-time passageway that disappeared at the end of the last ice age. That unstoppable desire of people to explore pushed some ancient culture living in the Asian continent to go across the strait, beginning a long process of settlement of North America. But were they really isolated from the rest of the world after the Bering Strait became a sea again around 15,000 years ago? Here are 5 theories about how the Americas were in contact with the rest of the world. The Vikings. One proven theory is the Norse Viking journeys. Centuries before the arrival of the Spanish and the British empires, the Norse people established a colony on the Atlantic coast of Canada, specifically on the island of Newfoundland. As in most meetings of cultures, the relationship was not easy. The writings mention the Skraelingar, the Viking name for Thule people, as a source of commerce and conflict. It looks like business and flights are 2 things that usually happened all over history when 2 civilizations found each other. The Polynesians. The connections between the natives of the Polynesian islands are as mysterious as they are useful for a theory on the settlement of South America. Does the famous haka ritual of the New Zealand All Blacks rugby sound familiar? What about traditional celebrations and ceremonies in Hawaii? Do you know they are very similar to those on Easter Island off the coast of Chile, even though that it is located 4,500 miles southeast of there? There's a theory that rules out this being a coincidence. Incredible as it may seem, it is likely that the Americas were also populated by people who crossed the Pacific Ocean and somehow reached the next port through the vast expanse of sea. There are several traces of this contact. One of them is a linguistic, and it can be verified to the sweet potato. Yes, the simple potato could be the main link to establish a solid theory. It all starts with the Proto-Polynesian word Kumala. You have Kumara on Easter Island, Koala in Hawaii, Kumara from the Polynesian Maori, and Kuma and Kumara in Quechua and Aymara, spoken in what is now Peru, Bolivia and Chile. The language connections have been supported by findings published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America. By analysing the DNA of 1,245 sweet potato varieties from Asia and the Americas, researchers have found genetic evidence that the sweet potato reached Polynesia from the Andes almost 400 years before the Spanish colonization. This shows that ancient Polynesians may have interacted with people from South America. The physical, cultural and linguistic similarities between the native South Americans and the Polynesians is strong support for this theory. More proof: Peruvian mummies with ancient resins support these claims, as well as the DNA of chickens. Yes, the Mapuche people in Chile had chickens with a DNA consistent with species from Oceania. The Asian. There is one intriguing claim that connects the Chinese with what today is Ecuador in South America. This theory says that the influence of Chinese explorers at the end of the Shang dynasty pushed out of the Olmec culture. If this is true, these explorers found their way across the seas around 1200 BC. Nevertheless, these claims are unsupported by the mainstream Mesoamerican researchers. Some pottery from the Valdivia culture, also from Ecuador, is connected with the Japanese pottery. The only way that this influence happened would be through direct contact. Dating from 200 BC, the carvings of the stupa of Bharat in central India shows what happens to be the depiction of a custard apple. This American species was supposedly introduced after 1500, so how did it show up in 200 BC? Besides, the ancient elephants' connections were made in the carvings on the Mayan stelae at Copan monuments fashioned in the ancient Mesoamerica. Nonetheless, contemporary archaeologists believe that the depictions were almost certainly based on the tapir, a large herbivorous mammal similar to a pig. The European. The greatest ancient civilizations of Europe could also have reached the Americas. The Bahia das Tijas in Brazil are certain clay storage jars that are very similar to the Roman amphoras. The only way to explain this would be a Roman shipwreck. Was that ship crude or just a wreck blown across the Atlantic? A similar situation related to Rome occurred with the mysterious bearded head Tecáxtla-Calixtlahuica found in Mexico in the early 20th century. There are even theories of links with ancient Greece, and many claim that Atlantis itself was in the New World. An amazing theory has come to light based on the use of tobacco and coca, two substances that only grew in the New World. Believe it or not, German toxicologist Svetlana Balabanov claimed to have found these substances in the Egyptian mummy of the priestess Enutawi. Let us remember that tobacco and coca leaves were adopted in Europe after being discovered in America. Balabanov was accused of fraud, so the possibility of a previous encounter between Africa and America remains a mystery. The religious experience. Finally, we have to mention some religious theories. First, the one claiming Christians had an encounter with Americans before 1492 originated from the beginning of the infamous Aztec prophecy. Their god, Quetzalcoatl, and Thomas the Apostle could be the same person from this perspective. They were just waiting for his return, which unfortunately did not work out well for the Aztecs. The other myth is related to the 10 Jewish tribes. The Portuguese rabbi and writer Manasseh ben Israel stated in his book The Hope of Israel that the aboriginal people of Americas were the descendants of the lost tribes, and that their discovery heralded the imminent arrival of the biblical Messiah. The scientific community agrees that there is no evidence to support this theory, which was spread to serve the interests of Jewish and Christian religious groups and to legitimize European colonization of the Americas. What happened for so many years in that place that we know as the Americas will remain a mystery. Once the Europeans arrived, we do know the natives' blood was spilled, and a big part of the oral tradition faded away forever, swallowed and hidden by Mother Nature. The answers to so many questions remain unsolved. Is the evidence convincing enough to say that natives were in contact with other civilizations before 1492? Yes, the Viking colony is factually proven. What about the others? Perhaps we will never know, but our curiosity and love for the cultures will continue to grow and drive future investigation. Did you enjoy the video? We would love to see you giving us a like and subscribe to our Intrigued Mind channel. We are continually releasing new fascinating content with the most exciting stories about the past, the present and the future. See you again soon.